A young billionaire tests the honesty of a poor mother and her daughter on Christmas Eve, but her response brings him to tears. The snow was falling slowly over the streets of Manhattan. Christmas lights twinkled in every shop window. Families walked hand in hand, and children pointed at the shiny decorations. It was Christmas Eve, and the entire city seemed wrapped in an almost irritating happiness. Ethan Walker watched it all with empty eyes. 30 years old, a billionaire, owner of one of the country's largest tech companies. Anyone would say he had it all. But there he was, alone, his hands stuffed in the pockets of his Italian wool coat, walking aimlessly through the crowded streets. It wasn't always like this. There was a time when he believed in people, trusted them, even opened his heart. But that was over. The disappointments came one after another, each one crueler than the last. And the worst of them all? It came from the person he least expected. Now, as Ethan didn't trust anyone, to him everyone wanted something. Money, status, connections. No one got close to him for who he really was. No one cared about Ethan, only about what Ethan had. He stopped in front of a toy store. Inside, a child pressed his nose against the glass, pointing at a giant teddy bear. The father smiled, and the mother ruffled the boy's hair. A scene so common, so simple, and so distant from his own reality. Ethan looked away and kept walking. That's when he saw them. A young blonde woman, with a frayed scarf and a coat that had seen better days. Beside her, a little girl with golden hair and bright eyes that shone like little beacons. The child held her mother's hand tightly, swinging a small paper bag. Ethan stopped. He watched them from a distance. The girl was laughing, pointing up, probably at the glowing decorations. The mother smiled, but there was weariness in that smile. She carried 2 full bags, one in each hand. No brand names, no luxury. Just the basics. Something stirred in him. Maybe it was the contrast, the genuine joy of that child, while he, with all the money in the world, couldn't feel anything but emptiness. But then the bitter thought came. Are they honest? Does honesty still exist in anyone? The idea formed quickly, almost automatically. A test, simple, cruel, perhaps, but effective. Ethan adjusted the wallet in the inner pocket of his coat. It was an expensive piece, made of genuine leather, and inside was more cash than most people earned in a month. He took a few steps toward them, calculating the right moment. As he passed them, he let the wallet slip out on purpose. It fell to the ground with a muffled thud. Ethan kept walking, but he slowed his pace. He discreetly turned his head just enough to watch. The little girl saw it first. "Mommy, look!" She tugged on her mother's coat sleeve, pointing at the ground. Clara looked down. Her eyes widened when she saw the wallet. For a second, just a second, she stood still. Ethan saw the hesitation. Will she take it? Will she pretend she didn't see it? But then Clara dropped her bags on the ground and took her daughter's hand. "Come on, Lily, quick!" They ran after him. "Sir?" Clara called out, her voice soft but firm. "Sir, wait!" Ethan stopped. He turned slowly, as if surprised. Clara approached, slightly out of breath, and held out the wallet. "You dropped this, sir." Ethan took the wallet back. He looked at her bright, tired but honest eyes. Then he looked at the little girl beside her, who was watching him with curiosity. "Why didn't you keep the money?" he asked, his voice as cold as ice. "You clearly need it more than I do." Clara blinked, surprised by the question. She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could speak, a firm little voice cut through the air. "My mommy is not a thief." Ethan looked down. The little girl had taken a step forward, holding her mother's hand tightly. Her small, bright eyes were fixed on his, full of indignation. "The right thing to do is give it back," Lily continued, her voice trembling slightly but resolute. "This isn't ours. It's yours." Silence. Ethan was speechless, literally. He had prepared answers for everything, for greed, for lame excuses, for lies, but for this, for dignity coming from a 5-year-old child. He had no answer. Clara placed a hand on her daughter's shoulder, protectively, but said nothing. She just looked at him, as if waiting for him to understand what had just happened, and he understood. Ethan slowly put the wallet away. He looked at the two of them, the mother with her worn-out coat and modest bags, the daughter with her shining eyes and brutal honesty. "I'm sorry," he murmured, almost unintentionally. I'm sorry." Clara gave a half-smile, tired but kind. "Merry Christmas, sir." She picked up her bags and took Lily's hand. The two of them turned and continued walking, disappearing into the illuminated crowd. Ethan stood there, in the middle of the sidewalk, with the wallet in his hand and a strange ache in his chest. He had tested them, and he had failed his own test. For the first time in a long time, Ethan Walker felt small. Not because he was poor or weak, but because he had forgotten that there were still good people in the world. And a 5-year-old child had just proven it to him. He looked up at the sky. The snow continued to fall, light and silent. The Christmas lights glowed all around. But for the first time that night, he truly saw it all. And for the first time in years, he felt something other than emptiness. Curiosity. Who were those two? How did they live? What led a mother and daughter to walk around on Christmas Eve with modest bags but so much dignity? Ethan didn't know. But somehow he had to find out. He put the wallet away, adjusted his coat, and looked in the direction they had gone. He couldn't see them anymore, but something inside him had changed, something small but real. Maybe there was hope. Maybe kindness still existed. Maybe he didn't have to live alone forever. Maybe... Ethan turned around and started walking back home, but now, for the first time in a long time, he wasn't thinking about the emptiness of the mansion that awaited him. He was thinking of a pair of bright eyes and a firm voice saying, "My mommy is not a thief," and that, in a strange way, was enough for now. The mansion was silent when Ethan passed through the electronic gate. Too silent. He parked the car in the garage and entered through the side door. The heating was on, keeping the temperature perfect. The lights turned on automatically as he walked down the hall, everything working as it should, everything flawless, everything empty. Ethan took off his coat and hung it on the marble rack. He walked through the enormous living room, decorated by a famous designer. Italian leather sofas, works of art on the walls, a grand piano that no one played. Every object in there cost more than most people made in a year, but there was no one to see it, no one to appreciate it, no one to be there with him. He continued to the dining room. The table was set. The housekeeper had done everything before leaving early as he had asked. White porcelain plates, silver cutlery, crystal glasses, tall candles in elegant holders. A platter with roasted turkey, potatoes, and perfectly prepared vegetables, all arranged as if to receive a dozen guests. But there was only one place set at the table. Ethan pulled out the chair and sat down. He looked at the food, at the beautiful table, at the huge empty room around him, and he didn't feel like eating anything. He poured some wine into his glass, took a sip. Expensive, imported, award-winning. It made no difference. It tasted like nothing. The clock on the wall read 11:40, 20 minutes until midnight, 20 minutes until Christmas officially arrived. Ethan looked at the window. Outside, the snow continued to fall. The city lights twinkled in the distance. He imagined families gathered together, children eagerly waiting for Santa Claus, tables full of people laughing and talking. And he was here, alone. He picked up his fork, cut a piece of turkey, brought it to his mouth, chewed mechanically, swallowed. It had no taste. He dropped the fork back onto the plate. That's when the voice returned. "My mommy is not a thief." Lily, the little blonde girl with bright eyes, her firm, indignant voice, defending her mother with all the courage a 5-year-old could have. Ethan closed his eyes, Why couldn't he get that out of his head? He had conducted the test expecting to confirm what he already knew, that everyone was driven by self-interest, that no one was truly honest, that he was right not to trust anyone. But they had returned the wallet, and not only that, the girl had been offended by the idea that her mother might take the money, as if the suggestion itself was an insult. And it was. Ethan opened his eyes. He looked at the empty table, at the high ceiling, at the expensive paintings on the walls. Those two had nothing. Their clothes were old, their bags modest. They probably lived on very little, working hard just to get by. And yet, they had chosen to do the right thing, while he, with all the wealth in the world, was alone in a cold mansion. The clock struck 11:50. Ethan got up and went to the window. He rested his forehead on the cold glass and watched the illuminated city below. How many times had he eaten alone at that table? How many holiday parties had he spent with no one? How many birthdays, holidays, special dates had he let pass by in silence? He had chosen this. After the betrayals, the disappointments, he had decided it was easier to be alone, safer, less painful. But now, looking at the city full of lights and life, he realized something. Loneliness hurt too. It hurt differently. It wasn't the sharp pain of a stab in the back. It was a dull, constant ache that ate away at you slowly. And he had lived with it for so long he didn't even notice it anymore until today. Until he saw that mother and daughter walking down the street together, smiling, holding each other's hands, poor, yes, tired, yes, but together. They had something he didn't have, true love. Ethan stepped away from the window and returned to the table. He looked at his half-eaten plate, at the untouched wine, at the empty chair on the other side. Those two were probably in some small apartment now. Maybe they didn't even have turkey or a beautiful table. Maybe they were eating something simple, sharing a cheap piece of cake. But they were together, and he'd bet everything he had that they were happier than he was at that moment. The clock struck midnight. Christmas. Outside, fireworks began to pop. Flashes of light lit up the sky. The city was celebrating. Ethan stood still, looking up at the ceiling. Merry Christmas to him. He went back to the chair and sat down again. He rested his elbows on the table and held his head in his hands. How had he gotten here? How had he let his life become this? He had money, power, success, everything he had dreamed of when he was younger, but he had lost everything that truly mattered along the way. And the worst part, he had chosen this. He had closed the doors. He had pushed everyone away. He had decided that living alone was better than risking getting hurt again. But was it? Was a life without pain worth anything if it also had no love? Ethan sat there for a long time. The food grew cold. The wine was forgotten. The candles burned down to the end. And for the first time in years, he felt something other than anger or bitterness. He felt regret. Regret for having closed himself off, for having given up on people, for having decided the whole world was bad just because a few people had been. That mother and daughter had proven him wrong. Kindness still existed. Honesty still existed. True love still existed. And they had it. With so little, they had everything, while he, with so much, had nothing. Ethan looked at the clock, 20 past midnight. Christmas had arrived, and he was exactly where he always was, alone. But something had changed. Something small, more fragile, but real. For the first time in a long time, Ethan didn't want to be alone anymore. He just didn't know how to change it. He got up from the table and went upstairs to his room. He took off his suit, put on something comfortable, and lay down in the huge, empty bed. He stared at the ceiling in the dark. And before he fell asleep, the voice came back one more time. "My mommy is not a thief." Ethan closed his eyes, and for the first time in years, he felt something he had forgotten existed. Hope. Maybe it wasn't too late. Maybe there was still time to change. Maybe he could learn from those two. Maybe. He fell asleep thinking about it. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't have any nightmares. Ethan woke up early on Christmas Day, not because he wanted to. He simply couldn't stay asleep. His mind wouldn't stop. Thoughts spun endlessly, always coming back to the same thing, that mother and her daughter. He took a shower, put on something casual, jeans and a simple sweater, and went downstairs. The mansion was still silent. The housekeeper had the day off, the staff too, it was just him. Ethan made some coffee and sat in the enormous kitchen. He looked out the window. The snow had stopped during the night, leaving everything covered in a white blanket. He needed to do something, anything. Staying inside would drive him crazy. He grabbed his car keys and left. He didn't have a plan. He didn't know exactly what he was looking for, but he drove back downtown to the same place where he had found them the day before. The streets were emptier today. Shops were closed. Less traffic. Some families were still walking, children testing new toys in the snow. Ethan parked and started walking. He passed the toy store, the square, the same stretch of sidewalk where he had dropped the wallet. Nothing. He kept going, turned down a side street, then another. He looked at people, trying to find that blonde hair, those bright eyes. He walked for over an hour. The cold started to get to him. He thought about giving up. Maybe it was crazy. The city was huge. How was he going to find two people he had seen for only 5 minutes? That's when he saw the diner. It was a small, simple place, squeezed between a laundromat and a pharmacy. The facade needed a fresh coat of paint. The sign was faded. Mel's Diner, it said in worn red letters. Ethan looked through the window and his heart skipped a beat. Inside, cleaning a table near the window, was her Clara, the blonde mother. She was wearing a simple uniform, a blue apron, her hair tied back in a ponytail. She was wiping the table with a cloth, focused on her work. And in the corner, sitting in a chair against the wall, was Lily. The little girl had a piece of paper in front of her and a few colored pencils beside it. She was drawing with her tongue sticking out, completely focused. Ethan stood there on the sidewalk, watching. He had found them. Now what? What was he going to do? Go in. Say what? Hi, I'm the guy who tested you yesterday, and I've been obsessed ever since. But before he could decide, Clara looked at the window. Their eyes met. She froze mid-motion, the cloth still in her hand, and her eyes widened. Surprise, confusion, maybe a little fear. There was no turning back now. Ethan opened the door and went inside. A small bell chimed above the door. Lily looked up immediately. It's the man, she said, her eyes shining. Mommy, it's the wallet man. Clara dropped the cloth on the table and took a few steps toward him. She still looked confused. Sir, what are you doing here? Ethan shoved his hands in his pockets. Suddenly, he felt out of place. Him, in a place like this. Him, with no good reason to be there. I just came for some coffee, he said, trying to sound casual. Clara blinked. She looked at him, at his jeans, at his simple sweater. It wasn't the expensive coat from yesterday, but still, he didn't look like the kind of customer who frequented this place. Of course, she said hesitantly. Sit wherever you like. I'll bring you a menu. Ethan chose a spot near the window, not too close to where Lily was, but not far either. He sat down and waited. The diner was small, maybe 10 tables in total. The smell of coffee mixed with bacon and butter filled the air. An old radio quietly played Christmas music in the corner. There were other customers, an elderly man reading a newspaper, a woman in a nurse's uniform eating toast, a young couple sharing pancakes. Clara returned with a laminated menu and a pen. What can I get for you? Ethan looked at the menu. Coffee, eggs, toast, pancakes, nothing fancy, everything simple and cheap. Black coffee and pancakes, please. Clara jotted it down on her notepad and left. Ethan sat there, looking around. The place was clean but clearly old. Plastic chairs, formica tables, worn-out floors. It smelled of grease and coffee. Simple, honest. Lily was still drawing in the corner. Every now and then, she would look at him and smile. Ethan gave a discreet nod back. Clara returned with the coffee. She placed the cup in front of him without a word and went to take care of another table. Ethan took a sip. It was strong, hot, honest. It wasn't the gourmet coffee he drank at home, made with imported beans in a $5,000 Italian machine. But there was something comforting about it. He watched Clara work. She cleaned, took orders, served plates. She did everything with efficiency, with dignity. She didn't complain. She didn't seem bitter. She just did her job. And she did it well. Her movements were quick but careful. She smiled at the customers, asked if everything was all right, refilled coffee cups without anyone having to ask. She worked like someone who depended on every cent of her tips, but also like someone who took pride in what she did, and in the corner Lily kept drawing, completely oblivious to the harshness of the world around her. Just a child being a child. Her colored pencils were so short she could barely hold them. The paper was an old sheet from a notebook with faded blue lines, but she drew with such concentration, such seriousness, as if she were creating a masterpiece. The pancakes arrived. Ethan ate slowly, in no hurry. He had nowhere else to go, nothing better to do, and for the first time in a long time he didn't mind. When he finished, Clara came to clear his plate. Anything else? No, thank you. She left the bill on the table and walked away. Ethan looked at the paper. $8. He left a $50 bill under the cup, stood up, and left. Clara saw the bill when she went to clean the table. Her eyes widened. She looked toward the door, but he was already gone. The next day, Ethan came back. Same time, same table, same order. Clara served him with the same professional courtesy. Lily waved from her chair. Ethan waved back. And the next day he came back again, and the day after that too. On the third day, one of the other waitresses, an older woman with red hair, said something to Clara while Ethan was there. He didn't hear what was said, but he saw Clara shrug and look away. On the fourth day, Clara finally asked. Ethan was finishing his coffee when she approached, wiping her hands on her apron. "Do you live around here?" Ethan looked at her. He thought about lying, but he couldn't. "No, I live on the other side of town." "Oh." Clara didn't know what to say. "That's far." "It is. But you keep coming back." "I do." She looked at him for a long moment, trying to understand. Her bright eyes studied his face, searching for an answer he wasn't giving. "Can I ask why?" Ethan didn't have a good answer. How could he explain? "Because you two showed me there's still kindness in the world. Because I've been alone for too long and forgot what it was like to be around real people." "The coffee is good," he said, finally. Clara smiled faintly. She didn't believe him, but she didn't press. "Right." She nodded. "Good to know." And she went back to work. Ethan knew it seemed strange, a seemingly well-off man coming back to a cheap diner every day, on the poor side of town, sitting alone, eating in silence, watching. But he couldn't stop. There was something there, something he didn't have at home, something simple but real, life, connection, humanity, things money couldn't buy. On the fifth day, something different happened. Ethan was finishing his coffee when he saw Lily get up from her chair. She looked at her mother, who was busy at the cash register. Then she looked at him. She hesitated for a second, then started walking towards him. Clara didn't see. She was busy helping a customer. Lily stopped beside Ethan's table. She was holding a piece of paper in her small hands. "Hi," she said shyly. "Hi, Lily." She smiled when she heard her name. "You remember me?" "Of course I do." "And my name too." "That too." Lily looked at the paper in her hand. She shuffled her feet, bit her lip. Can I say something?" "You can." She looked up into his eyes. "You look sad." Ethan didn't expect that. He was speechless. "Every day you come here, Lily continued, her voice quiet but firm. And you sit all alone, and you don't talk to anyone. My mommy said that sometimes people get sad at Christmas. Are you sad? Ethan didn't know what to say. How could a 5-year-old have seen something he thought he was hiding so well? Sometimes, he admitted finally. Lily nodded seriously. I get sad sometimes too, when I miss my daddy. But then my mommy says we have to look for good things, things that make us happy. And what makes you happy? Drawing. Her eyes lit up. And ice cream. And when my mommy reads me stories before bed. And flowers. And the sun. Ethan smiled. A small but genuine smile. Lily held out the paper. I made this for you, to cheer you up. Ethan took the paper slowly. It was a drawing, made with worn-out colored pencils, some so short they were hard to hold. The lines were crooked, the proportions strange. But it had color, it had life, it had soul. A huge sun in the top right corner, with a smiling face and rays shooting out in all directions. Big, colorful flowers covered the bottom, red, yellow, purple, pink. A little house in the middle, with blue windows and a red door. Yellow smoke coming out of the chimney, a path of brown pebbles leading to the door. And in the sky, in crooked and uneven letters, it was written in green pencil, Merry Christmas. Ethan held the paper and felt something tighten in his chest. When was the last time someone had done something like this for him? Something simple, selfless, from the heart, without expecting anything in return, without a hidden motive. He couldn't remember. Maybe never. Bon, do you like it? Lily asked anxiously. It took me a long time to make. I wanted it to be pretty. Ethan looked at her bright, shining eyes, full of hope and genuine concern. I like it very much, he said, and his voice came out more emotional than he intended. It's the most beautiful drawing I've ever received in my life. Lily's face lit up like a Christmas tree. Really? Really, truly? She did a little happy jump, her small hands clasped in front of her chest. Then you won't be sad anymore. Ethan smiled again, bigger this time. I'll try not to be. Promise? I promise. Lily held out her pinky finger. You have to make a pinky promise, then you can never ever break it. Ethan looked at the small, outstretched finger, then at the girl's serious face. She meant business. He extended his own pinky and linked it with hers. I promise. Lily smiled, satisfied. Then she turned around and ran back to her corner. Clara appeared, finally free from the register. She was wiping her hands on her apron. Lily, stop bothering the gentleman. She's not bothering me, Ethan said quickly. Not at all. Clara looked at her daughter, then at him, then at the drawing in his hand. Her eyes softened. She loves to draw, Clara said almost apologetically. She's always scribbling on any paper she can find. She uses up all the colored pencils I can afford to buy. It's a talent, Ethan said, looking at the drawing again. Truly, she has a gift. You think so? Clara seemed surprised and proud. I think so too, but I don't know much about these things. I do, and she's special. Clara was silent for a moment, studying his face, trying to figure out who this strange man was who showed up every day, left generous tips, and was now being so kind to her daughter. Thank you, she said, finally, for being kind to her. A lot of people aren't. Ethan nodded. He didn't know what to say. Clara went back to work. But before she walked away completely, she glanced back one more time. And for the first time, there was something different in her eyes. It was no longer just confusion or suspicion. It was curiosity. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something like trust. Ethan stared at the drawing for a long time. He traced his fingers over the crooked lines, the vibrant colors, the words written with so much effort. A sun, flowers, a little house. Simple things. Things a 5-year-old thought were important. Things that made her happy, And somehow in that moment, they made him happy too. Happier than any business deal closed, any check signed, any professional achievement had made him in years. When he left the diner, Ethan carefully folded the drawing and put it in the inside pocket of his jacket. Close to his heart, he came back the next day and the next and the one after that, always at the same time, always the same table, always the same order. Clara stopped asking why. She just served him politely, left the coffee, brought the pancakes, took the bill. And Ethan always left a generous tip, never absurd enough to seem offensive or overly charitable, but always more than expected. Lily always waved. Sometimes she would show him a new drawing, sometimes she just smiled. Once, she sang a song she had learned at school. Ethan listened to it all, smiling. And Ethan, always serious, always quiet, would wave back. The people at the diner started to notice. The well-dressed guy who came every day, sat alone, ate in silence, and watched the mother and daughter in the corner. Some found it strange, others found it sad. The red-haired waitress commented to Clara that he must be in love with her. Clara shook her head, not believing it. But Ethan didn't care what they thought. For the first time in a long time, he had found something that made sense. It wasn't the food. It wasn't the place. It was them. Clara's dignity, her honest work, the way she cared for her daughter, even when she was tired, even when she was struggling, the quiet strength she had, and Lily's joy, her innocence, her ability to see beauty in simple things, to draw a smiling sun and think it could cure someone's sadness. And it could, because in a strange way, it was working. Ethan was still serious, still quiet, still carried the weight of past disappointments. But something had changed. He didn't feel so alone anymore, and it was all because of a drawing made with worn-out pencils and a pure heart. All because of a 5-year-old little girl who thought he deserved to be happy. And maybe, just maybe, she was right. Ethan spent the whole morning thinking about it. It had been 2 weeks since he started frequenting the diner. 2 weeks of seeing Clara work non-stop, seeing Lily draw with those worn-out, almost stubby pencils. 2 weeks of receiving smiles, waves, small gestures of kindness. He didn't know he needed so much, and he hadn't given anything in return. Sure, he left generous tips, but that felt cold, impersonal. Money was easy for him, it always had been, but that wasn't what he wanted to give. He wanted to give something that meant something, something that showed he had been paying attention, that he cared. That's how he found himself walking into a toy store late in the afternoon. The place was large, full of colorful shelves and children's music playing in the background. Kids ran through the aisles. Parents tried to control the excitement. Employees reorganized products. Ethan walked slowly, looking around. He had no idea what to look for. When was the last time he'd been in a toy store? 15 years, 20. He passed the toy cars, the electronic games, the expensive robots. Nothing seemed right. That's when he saw the dolls, a whole shelf from floor to ceiling. Dolls of all kinds, princesses, fairies, babies, dolls that talked, that walked, that did 1,000 things. Ethan stopped. Lily had never mentioned dolls, but something in him told him she would like one. He analyzed the options. The most expensive ones were too sophisticated, too much technology, too many accessories. They didn't match the simplicity he saw in her. Then he saw a simple doll, blonde hair, blue eyes, a yellow dress with small flowers, no electronics, no batteries, just a soft cloth doll with a sweet smile painted on its face. It was perfect. Ethan took it from the shelf and went to look for the next thing. Drawing pads were in another section. He found several types, some with simple covers, others with cartoon characters. He chose a medium-sized one with a sky blue hardcover and thick, white pages, the kind that didn't tear easily. Then he went to the art supplies section, colored pencils. There were so many options. Boxes with 12 colors, 24, 48, even 100 different colors. Ethan picked up a box with 24. It wasn't over the top, but it had enough colors to create anything, And the best part, the pencils were new, long sharpened, ready to use. At the checkout, the cashier smiled. "A gift for your daughter," Ethan hesitated. "For a friend." "She's a lucky girl," the woman said, wrapping everything in colorful paper with little stars. Ethan left the store with the package under his arm. His heart was beating faster than it should. Nervous, anxious, like a boy giving his first gift to someone special. Ridiculous. He was a 30-year-old billionaire. He had closed million-dollar deals without breaking a sweat. He had given speeches to hundreds of people without stuttering, and now he was nervous over a doll and a notebook. But this was different. This mattered in a way business deals never had. The next day, Ethan arrived at the diner at his usual time. The little bell chimed as he opened the door. Lily looked up immediately and smiled. "Hi." "Hi, Lily." Clara was cleaning a table on the other side of the room. She nodded at him. Ethan nodded back and sat at his usual table, but this time he had the package with him. He placed it on the chair next to him, trying to be discreet. But Lily had eagle eyes. "What's that?" she asked, already getting up. "Lily, leave the gentleman alone," Clara called out without looking back. "It's okay," Ethan said. "You can come here, Lily." The girl didn't need to be told twice. She came running, her eyes fixed on the wrapped package. "Is it a present?" "It is." "Who's it for?" Ethan smiled. "For you." Her eyes widened. "For me, really? Really? But why?" Ethan didn't have an elaborate answer. He hadn't prepared a speech. "Because you gave me a drawing. I thought I should return the favor." Lily looked at the package, then at him, then at the package again. Her hands were trembling with excitement. "Can I open it?" "Of course." Clara had stopped cleaning. She was watching now, the cloth forgotten in her hand. There was concern on her face. Lily tore the paper with the typical excitement of a child. Pieces flew everywhere, and then she saw it. The doll appeared first. Lily held it with both hands, her eyes shining like stars. "A doll!" she shouted. "Mommy, look, a real doll!" Clara took a few steps toward them. "Lily, that's too much." But Lily wasn't listening. She had found the notebook and the colored pencils now. "And a new notebook." She flipped through the blank white pages with reverence, as if they were made of gold. "Look how many pages. I can draw so many things." She opened the box of colored pencils. She picked them up one by one, admiring each color. "There's purple, and pink, and turquoise. Mommy, there's even gold." Ethan watched, his chest tight. Her joy was so pure, so genuine. It wasn't greed. It wasn't self-interest. It was just happiness. Lily dropped everything on the table, ran to him, and hugged him. It was so sudden that Ethan didn't have time to prepare. Her small arms wrapped around him, squeezing tightly. Her face pressed against his chest. She smelled like cheap shampoo and crayons. "Thank you." Her voice came out muffled. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Ethan was paralyzed for a second. He didn't know what to do. When was the last time someone had hugged him like that, with true affection? Without expecting anything in return, slowly, hesitantly, he put his hands on her back. He returned the hug, and he felt something strange happen. Warmth. A human warmth he hadn't experienced in so long he had forgotten what it felt like. It wasn't the physical warmth of another person. It was something deeper. Something that reached places inside him that had been frozen for years. Connection, affection, mattering. The feeling that he mattered to someone. Not for his money, not for what he could do, just for existing. His eyes stung. He blinked quickly, pushing back the tears before they could fall. Lily pulled away, still smiling. "I'm going to draw something for you." "Something really pretty with all the colors. It will be beautiful," Ethan said, his voice hoarser than he intended. Lily ran back to her corner, clutching the doll in one arm and the notebook in the other. Clara stood there, watching him. There was something different in her eyes now. It wasn't suspicion anymore. It wasn't confusion. It was understanding. She took a few steps to his table and sat in the chair across from him, something she had never done before. "You didn't have to do that," she said softly. "I know. It must have been expensive." "It was nothing." Clara shook her head. "It was something, maybe not to you, but to her." She looked at her daughter, who was already drawing frantically. "To her, it's everything." Ethan didn't know what to say. Clara studied him for a long moment. "Can I ask you something?" "You can." "Why do you keep coming here? For real? It's not for the coffee. It's not for the food. So why?" Ethan looked at her bright, tired but kind eyes. She deserved honesty. "Because you two reminded me of something I had forgotten," he said slowly, "that there are still good people in the world." Clara was silent. "I spent a long time thinking everyone just wanted something from me," Ethan continued, "that no one was honest, that you couldn't trust anyone. And then you returned my wallet, and your daughter defended me, and gave me a drawing just because she thought I was sad." He paused. "You didn't want anything from me. You were just good, and I didn't know that still existed." Clara blinked. Her eyes welled up a little. "We just did the right thing," she said simply. "I know, and that's rare." She gave a small smile. "But you've been through some bad things, haven't you?" "I have." "Me too," Clara said quietly. "I know what it's like to lose faith in people. I know what it's like to think everyone is going to hurt you." Ethan looked at her intently. "But then I had Lily," Clara continued, "and she reminded me that not everything is bad. That it's still worth being good, even when the world isn't. She's special." "She is," Clara smiled, looking at her daughter. "She's the best thing that ever happened to me." They were silent for a moment, a comfortable silence, mutual understanding without needing words. Then Clara stood up. "Thank you," she said, "for the gift, for the kindness, for seeing us." "Thank you for letting me in," Ethan replied. Clara nodded and went back to work. Ethan sat there, drinking his coffee, watching Lily draw with excitement using her new pencils. She held the doll in her lap as she drew, talking to it quietly. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan felt whole. The rest of the day went by quickly. Ethan ate, paid the bill, and left his usual tip. As he was leaving, late in the afternoon, the sky had already grown dark. Winter did that. 5 o'clock, and it looked like midnight. The cold was biting. The wind blew hard. Ethan pulled his coat tighter and started walking toward his car. "Wait!" He turned. Lily was running after him, with Clara right behind, trying to catch up. "Lily, don't run like that. You'll fall." But the girl wasn't listening. She stopped in front of Ethan, out of breath, her cheeks red from the cold. "You forgot to say goodbye," Ethan smiled. "I'm sorry." "Goodbye, Lily." "Goodbye," she said. And then, suddenly, she took his hand. Her little hand was small, warm, firm. "You should come all the time," she said seriously. "We like you." Ethan felt his chest tighten again. "You do?" "Yes. Mommy said you're nice, and I think so too." Clara had caught up now. She put a hand on her daughter's shoulder, a bit embarrassed. "Lily, don't go making things up." "But Mommy did say it," Lily protested. "The other day Aunt Ruth asked who you were and Mommy said you were nice." Clara turned red. She looked away. Ethan hid a smile. Clara cleared her throat, trying to regain her composure. "What Lily meant to say is—" She paused, then took a deep breath. "You're welcome here." "Always." She looked at him, straight in the eyes, and there was sincerity there, pure truth. "You don't have to make up excuses to come. You don't have to pretend it's just for the coffee. If you want to come, just come. She hesitated. "We like having you around." Ethan was speechless. Acceptance. That's what he was feeling. True acceptance. Not because he was rich, not because he could be useful, but because they liked him, simple as that. When was the last time someone had welcomed him like that? He couldn't remember. "Thank you," he said, and the word came out heavy with emotion. "That means more than you can imagine." Lily squeezed his hand. "So you promise you'll come back?" "I promise." "Pinky promise." Ethan let go of her hand and held out his pinky. Lily linked hers with his. "Pinky promise." Satisfied, Lily let go and hugged her mother's leg. "It's too cold," Clara said. "We need to go back, but see you tomorrow." "You'll see me tomorrow," Ethan confirmed. Clara smiled. A small but real smile. Then she took Lily by the hand and they went back into the diner. Ethan stood there on the sidewalk, watching them go inside. Through the window, he saw Lily showing the doll to the red-haired waitress, jumping with joy. He smiled, and then he walked to his car. But this time, the walk didn't feel cold. It didn't feel lonely. Because for the first time in a very, very long time, Ethan had found something he had always been searching for without knowing it, a family. Not by blood, not official, but real. People who cared about him. Not for what he had, but for who he was. And that, he realized as he drove back to his empty mansion, was the most valuable gift anyone could ever give. The gift of true friendship. Ethan woke up on Saturday with a different feeling in his chest. Lightness. That was the word. Something he hadn't felt in so long he had almost forgotten what it was like. He had coffee, looked out the mansion window. The sky was clear, blue, cloudless. The sun shone brightly, melting the snow at the edges. One of those rare winter days that seemed to promise something good. He picked up his phone and hesitated. He didn't have Clara's number. He had never asked. It seemed too invasive, but today was different. Today he wanted to do something special. He took a shower, put on jeans, a comfortable sweater and a jacket. Nothing fancy, just normal. He drove to the diner. It was 9 o'clock on a Saturday morning. The place was more crowded than on weekdays. Families having breakfast, couples sharing waffles, children making a mess. Clara was rushing from one side to the other, serving everyone. Lily was in her usual corner, drawing in her new notebook. The doll sat next to her on the chair. Ethan walked in. The little bell chimed. Lily looked up and her face lit up. "You came?" "I did." Clara passed by carrying a tray full of plates. She smiled at him, but didn't stop. "Good morning. I'll seat you in a moment." Ethan waited at the entrance. He watched Clara work. She was tired, you could see it, but she still smiled at the customers, still did her job well. Finally, she got a break. She came over to him, wiping her hands on her apron. "Sorry for the rush. Saturdays are always like this." "No problem. Do you want your usual table?" "Actually," Ethan took a deep breath, "I wanted to ask you something." Clara blinked, surprised. "Of course. Do you two have plans for today?" "Plans?" She gave a humorless laugh. "I work until 3. After that, it's just me and Lily at home. Why? Would you like to go out with me? After your shift?" Clara stood there, processing. "Go out?" "Yes. There's a nice park nearby. I thought Lily would like it, and afterward, we could have dinner together, the 3 of us." Clara looked at her daughter, then at him. "I don't know. It doesn't have to be anything complicated," Ethan said quickly. "Just a walk. Lily can play, get some fresh air. You don't have to pay for anything. It's on me. He paused. "I just wanted to spend some time with you, for real." Clara bit her lip. There was hesitation in her eyes, but there was something else too. A desire, maybe. "Lily would love that," she admitted quietly. "Then let her love it." Clara sighed. Then she smiled. "Okay, but only if it's something simple. Nothing extravagant. Simple. I promise. I finish at 3. Can you pick us up here?" "I'll be here." Clara nodded and went back to work, but Ethan saw the small smile on her face as she walked away. Ethan returned at 3 o'clock sharp. Clara was already waiting in front of the diner, her uniform replaced with jeans and a worn-out coat. Lily was beside her, jumping with excitement, holding her doll. "We're going out! We're going out!" she sang. Ethan opened the car door. Clara paused when she saw the vehicle. "Is that a—" "It's just a car," Ethan said quickly. It wasn't just a car. It was a black, new, expensive German sedan, but he didn't want that to matter. Clara hesitated, then got into the back seat with Lily. Ethan turned on the heat and drove to the park. Central Park was beautiful. The snow covered the trees. The sun made everything sparkle. Families strolled. Children made snowmen. Couples walked hand in hand. Lily jumped out of the car. "Look at all the snow!" Clara laughed, following her. "Be careful not to slip." Ethan locked the car and followed them. He watched the two of them, the way Clara held Lily's hand, the way Lily pointed at everything with excitement. They walked along the park paths. Lily stopped to look at the ducks in the pond, to touch the snow, to examine every tree. "Can I make a snowman?" she asked, her eyes shining. "You can," Clara said. Lily immediately threw herself into the snow. She started gathering snow with her little hands, trying to make a ball. Ethan knelt beside her. "Want some help?" "Yes." Together, they made the base. Ethan taught, Lily helped. Clara watched from a standing position, smiling. "Mommy too," Lily called. "Come on, Mommy." Clara laughed and knelt down too. The three of them worked together, making the snowman grow. Lily laughed non-stop, throwing snow everywhere. At some point, she accidentally hit Ethan in the face with snow. She froze, her eyes wide. "But I'm sorry." Ethan wiped the snow from his face. Then he grabbed a handful and gently threw it back. Lily shrieked with laughter, and so the snowball fight began. Lily against Ethan. Clara trying to protect her daughter, but laughing so hard she could barely move. Snow flying everywhere. Screams. Laughter. Total chaos. Ethan couldn't remember the last time he had laughed like that. Loud, genuine, without thinking about anything else. Just living in the moment. When they finally stopped, they were all wet, cold, and out of breath, and happy. The snowman was finished. It had rocks for eyes, a thin branch for a nose, and Lily placed her doll next to it. "So he won't be lonely," she explained. Ethan felt his chest tighten. "He's a lucky snowman." They walked a bit more. Lily ran ahead, with Clara and Ethan following behind. "Thank you for this," Clara said quietly. "She's so happy." "I am too," Ethan admitted. Clara looked at him. "It's been a while since I've seen you so light. It's been a while since I've felt this way." They continued walking in silence, a comfortable silence, just enjoying the day, the company, the moment. As it started to get dark, Lily was tired, but still excited. "I'm hungry," she announced. "Me too," Clara said. "Let's go home and make something to eat." "Actually," Ethan interrupted, "I wanted to invite you to dinner, if you're up for it." Clara frowned. "Dinner where?" "There's a good restaurant near here. Nothing too fancy, just a nice place." Clara hesitated. She looked at her clothes, at her old coat, at her worn-out jeans. "I don't know if—" "You look great," Ethan said. "And it's just dinner. Good food, good conversation. Nothing more." "We can't afford that," Clara said honestly. "You've already done so much today." "Tonight you're my guests," Ethan said, smiling. "Order whatever you want. It's on me. No arguments." Clara opened her mouth to protest. "Please," Ethan said before she could speak. "Let me do this for you, for me too. Just let me." Clara looked into his eyes. She saw sincerity there. She saw a genuine request. She sighed. "Okay, but only because Lily is hungry and I'm too tired to cook." Ethan smiled. The restaurant was Italian. It wasn't the most expensive in the city, but it wasn't cheap either. Tables with white tablecloths, lit candles, the smell of garlic and basil in the air. Clara looked uncomfortable as they walked in. She looked around at the other well-dressed customers. at the waiters in uniform. "Maybe we shouldn't—" "It's okay," Ethan said, gently. "I promise." The waiter led them to a table near the window. Lily climbed onto her chair, her huge eyes taking everything in. "It's pretty here," she whispered. "It is," Ethan agreed. The waiter brought the menus. Clara looked at the prices and turned pale. "Ethan, this is so expensive. Don't worry about it. Seriously." "But, Clara," he held her gaze, "let me do this. Please." She took a deep breath, then nodded. Lily ordered spaghetti and meatballs. Clara, nervously, chose the cheapest dish. Ethan ordered lasagna and ate without asking, also ordered a Caesar salad to share and some garlic bread. While they waited, Lily talked about the snowman, the snowball fight, about everything that had happened. She talked non-stop, her eyes shining. Clara was quieter, but Ethan could see her relaxing little by little, accepting the moment, letting her guard down. The food arrived. It was delicious. Lily ate as if there were no tomorrow, tomato sauce spreading across her face. Clara laughed, cleaning her daughter's face with a napkin. "You're a mess, but it's yummy." They talked about simple things, about the park, about winter, about Lily's plans for when she grew up. "I'm going to be an artist," she announced. "And I'm going to draw for everyone." "You're going to be an amazing artist," Ethan said. "You think so?" "I'm sure of it," Lily smiled, satisfied. At the end of the meal, the waiter brought dessert without anyone having ordered it. "Courtesy of the house," he said, winking. "For the little artist." It was tiramisu. Lily tasted it, and her eyes widened. "This is the best dessert I've ever had in my life," Clara laughed. Ethan too, and in that moment, sitting there with them, watching Lily devour her dessert and Clara finally relaxed and smiling, Ethan realized something. He was happy, genuinely, completely happy, not because he had money, not because he had success, not for anything he owned, but for being there. With them, sharing something simple but real, a walk, a dinner, laughter, things that cost nothing, but were worth everything. When they left the restaurant, the night was cold but starry. Lily was yawning, clutching her doll tightly. Ethan drove them back. Clara held Lily in her lap, the girl almost asleep. "Thank you," Clara said quietly. "For the day. For everything. It was special. For me too." She looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. "You're a good person, Ethan." He didn't know how to respond, because it had been so long since anyone had said something like that to him. When they arrived in front of their building, Clara got out with Lily in her arms. "See you on Monday?" she asked. "You'll see me on Monday." Lily, sleepy, opened her eyes just enough to wave. "Bye, Ethan. Thanks for the best day." "Bye, Lily." They went inside. Ethan waited until he saw them go up the stairs. Then he drove back home. And for the first time in a long time, the empty mansion didn't seem so bad, because now he had something to look forward to, something to live for. Two people who cared about him, who enjoyed his company, who made him feel human again, and that changed everything. It had been almost a month since the walk in the park, a month of daily visits to the diner, a month of coffees, short conversations, new drawings from Lily, a month of something Ethan never thought he'd have again, a routine with people who cared. It was on a Tuesday that Clara made the invitation. Ethan was finishing his coffee when she approached, wiping her hands on her apron. There was something different about her today, nervous, maybe. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." Clara looked around, making sure no one was listening. Do you have plans for Friday night?" Ethan blinked, surprised. "Dunno. Why?" "I wanted to—" She hesitated. "I wanted to invite you to dinner, at my place. Nothing fancy. Just homemade food, me and Lily. If you want to, of course." Ethan felt something warm in his chest. "Are you sure?" "I am," Clara said more firmly now. "You've done so much for us. The outing, the gifts, the tips that helped me so much. I wanted to repay you somehow, and Lily keeps asking for you to come over. She wants to show you all the drawings she's made." "I'd love that," Ethan said, without hesitation. Clara's face lit up. "Really? Really? So, Friday, 7 o'clock. I have to warn you, it's a small apartment. Nothing compared to what you must be used to." "Clara," Ethan said gently. "I don't care about that, I'll be there," she smiled, a relieved, happy smile. "Then it's a date." Friday arrived too quickly and too slowly at the same time. Ethan spent the day restless. He worked from home, trying to focus on reports and emails, but his mind kept going back to the same place. Dinner at their house. Something so simple, yet it meant so much. Trust. Clara was trusting him enough to let him into her personal space, the place where she and Lily lived, where they were most vulnerable. At 5 in the afternoon, Ethan went to a bakery. He looked for something good, but not over the top. He decided on a simple chocolate cake, well-made, high with a smooth frosting, nothing too fancy, just something tasty to share. At 6:30, he parked in front of the building Clara had indicated. It was an old building with faded bricks and external metal stairs. It wasn't dangerous, but it was definitely humble, very different from the neighborhood where he lived. Ethan went up to the 3rd floor, apartment 3B, she had said. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door. Quick footsteps. Then Lily's voice. "He's here, Mommy, he's here." The door opened. Lily appeared, smiling from ear to ear, wearing a pink dress that must have been her best one. "You came." "Of course I did. I promised, didn't I?" "Pinky promise," she said, seriously. Then she took his hand and pulled him inside. Come on. I have to show you a bunch of things." Ethan walked in. The apartment was small, as Clara had warned. Living room and kitchen in one space, a door that probably led to the only bedroom, a tiny bathroom. The furniture was old, patched up, but everything was clean and tidy. There were Lily's drawings everywhere, on the fridge, on the walls, some framed with cardboard and tape. It smelled like home-cooked food. Garlic, onions, something baking in the oven. Clara appeared from the kitchen, taking off an apron. She had changed out of her diner uniform into a simple blouse and jeans. Her blonde hair was down, falling over her shoulders. "Hi," she said, a little embarrassed. "Sorry for the mess." "It's not messy," Ethan said, honestly. "It's cozy," Clara smiled, relieved. "I brought this." Ethan held out the cake box. "You didn't have to." "I know, but I wanted to." Clara took the box and carried it to the kitchen. Lily wouldn't let go of Ethan's hand. "Come see my drawings. I made so many." She dragged him to a corner of the living room where there was a stack of papers. The notebook he had given her was already half full, each page filled with color and creativity. "This one is of you." Lily showed a drawing of a tall man with dark hair. "And this one is me, and this is Mommy, and this is us at the park." Ethan knelt down, looking at each drawing carefully. Some were better than others, but they all had something special. Life, love, innocence. "They're beautiful, Lily, all of them. Really, you have a lot of talent." Lily beamed with pride. Clara called from the kitchen. "Dinner's almost ready. You can sit at the table." The table was small, round, with 3 chairs. Clara had put down a clean tablecloth, simple plates, glass cups, nothing fancy, but done with care. Ethan sat down. Lily sat next to him, swinging her legs that didn't reach the floor. Clara brought the food, roasted chicken with potatoes and vegetables. Simple, but the smell was incredible. "I hope you like it," she said, serving the plates. "It's nothing special." "Are you sure? Because it looks delicious." They started to eat. And it was delicious. It wasn't fancy restaurant food, but it was made with care, seasoned just right, everything cooked perfectly. "This is great, Clara," seriously. "Mommy is a very good cook," Lily said, her mouth full. "She's the best cook in the world," Clara laughed, embarrassed but happy. They talked while they ate. Lily told them about school, about a teacher she adored, about a boy who had pulled her hair. "And what did you do?" Ethan asked. "I told him to stop, and he stopped," Lily said, proudly. "Very good. You have to stand up for yourself." Clara watched the interaction, smiling softly. When they finished, Clara cleared the plates and brought the cake. Lily squealed with joy when she saw the chocolate. "It's my favorite." "Really?" Ethan said. "Lucky me then." They ate dessert. Lily got chocolate on her face again. Clara cleaned it with a napkin, laughing. After dinner, Lily went to draw in her corner. Clara and Ethan stayed at the table, drinking a simple tea. That's when Ethan gathered his courage. There was something he had wanted to ask for weeks, but he had never found the right moment. Now, in this intimacy, it seemed like the time. "Can I ask you something?" he said quietly. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to." Clara looked at him, curious. "You can," Ethan hesitated. Then, "And Lily's father, can I ask about him?" Clara's face changed. It didn't get angry, just sad. She looked down, staring at the tea in her cup. "He left us," she said, her voice low, "when she was still a baby. Lily was 3 months old." Ethan stayed quiet, letting her speak in her own time. "We were too young," Clara continued. "I was 22, he was 23. When I got pregnant, he promised he would stay. That he would be a good father, but," she sighed, "I think he got scared of the responsibility, of having to really grow up. One day he just left a note saying he couldn't do it, and he never came back. I'm so sorry." Clara shrugged, but her eyes were glistening with unshed tears. "It was really hard at first. I had no one. My family had disowned me when I got pregnant. Friends disappeared. I was alone with a baby, with no money, no support." She paused. "There were days I didn't know how I was going to make it, but then I would look at her, so small, so innocent, and I knew I had to keep going for her." "You're strong," Ethan said, with conviction. "Very strong, or very stubborn," Clara gave a sad smile. "But we made it. It's not much, but it's ours, and she's happy. That's what matters. Lily is lucky to have you. Sometimes I wonder if she didn't deserve more, a father who was present, a better house, toys, new clothes." "Clara," Ethan interrupted, gently but firmly. "She has love, true love. And that's worth more than any material thing. Believe me, I grew up with everything money could buy, and I didn't have what she has. What you have." Clara looked at him, surprised. You had a difficult childhood." Ethan hesitated. This was territory he never shared, but something about that night, about her honesty, made him want to open up too. "Not financially difficult," he said slowly. "My parents were rich, very rich, but they were also distant, always working, always busy. I grew up with nannies, with tutors, with everything but real attention." He paused. "And when I grew up, I learned that people only got close out of self-interest, as for the money. For what I could offer." Clara listened to him in silence, attentively. "I had a best friend," Ethan continued, his voice heavier now. "Someone I'd known since childhood. We grew up together. I trusted him more than anyone in the world." He stopped, the old pain returning. "Until I found out he was stealing from the company. A lot of money. For years. And when I confronted him, he laughed in my face, said I was an idiot for trusting him, that he had always seen our friendship as an opportunity." "My God," Clara whispered. "Since then, I lost faith in people, in friendships. I thought everyone was like that no one was honest, that everyone just wanted something from me." He looked at her. "Until I met you." Clara was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and placed her hand on his on top of the table. "I'm so sorry you went through that. It's not your fault. I know, but I'm still sorry." Lily appeared out of nowhere, holding a new drawing. She hadn't heard the conversation, too focused on her art. "Look what I made." She showed it off proudly. It was a drawing of 3 people holding hands. A blonde woman, a little blonde girl, and a tall man with dark hair, all smiling, a bright sun above them. "It's the 3 of us," she explained. "Because we're friends." Ethan felt his throat tighten. Lily dropped the drawing on the table and, without warning, climbed onto his lap. She held his face with her small hands, making him look at her. "You're not alone anymore," she said, seriously. "You have us now." And that was it. Those simple words, coming from a 5-year-old child, broke down the last wall Ethan still had up. His eyes filled up. He tried to hold it back, but he couldn't. A tear rolled down, then another. "Ethan," Clara stood up, worried. "Are you okay?" He nodded, unable to speak. He hugged Lily, holding her tight against his chest. The girl returned the hug, her small arms around his neck. They weren't tears of sadness. They were of relief, of gratitude, of finally not being alone anymore. Clara came closer and placed a hand on his shoulder. A simple gesture, but it said everything. "You're part of this now. You belong here." Ethan stayed there, holding Lily, Clara's hand on his shoulder, and felt something he hadn't felt in years. Family. Not by blood, not official, but real. And for the first time in a long time, he believed that maybe, just maybe, everything was going to be okay. Because he wasn't alone anymore. He had them now, and they had him. 3 months had passed since that dinner. 3 months of subtle but profound changes. Ethan was no longer the bitter man who walked alone through the streets on Christmas Eve. He smiled more, talked more, lived more. And it was all because of 2 people who had chosen to return a wallet when they could have kept the money. It was a Saturday afternoon when Ethan invited Clara and Lily for lunch. Not at a fancy restaurant this time, but at a casual place Lily loved. A diner with colorful milkshakes and big burgers. Lily was in heaven, drinking a strawberry milkshake that was almost as big as her. Clara laughed, trying to get her to eat at least half of her burger before she stuffed herself with ice cream. Ethan watched the 2 of them, his chest warmed by that feeling he now knew so well. Belonging, happiness, purpose. But there was something that had been weighing on his mind for weeks. Something he needed to say, something he needed to do. "So can I talk to you guys about something?" he said, when Lily was distracted drawing on a napkin. Clara looked at him, wiping her mouth with her napkin. "Of course." Ethan took a deep breath. He wasn't exactly nervous, but it was important. Very important. "I wanted to thank you," he began. "Truly. For everything." Clara blinked, surprised. "Thank us." "But we didn't do anything." "You did," Ethan said firmly. "You saved me. I was lost, alone, not believing in anything anymore. And then you appeared. You returned my wallet when you didn't have to. You were kind when I didn't deserve it. You welcomed me when I was a stranger." He paused, his voice getting more emotional. "You reminded me that there's still good in the world, that there are still real people." Clara was blushing, fidgeting with the napkin in her hands. "We just were ourselves." "Exactly," Ethan said, "and that changed everything for me." Lily looked up, sensing the serious tone of the conversation. "Are you sad again?" "No," Ethan smiled at her. "On the contrary, I'm happy, very happy, and it's because of you 2. Lily smiled back and returned to her drawing, satisfied. Ethan turned his attention back to Clara. "I want to do something for you, not as a payment, not as charity, but as gratitude. For real." Clara frowned, suspicious. "Ethan, you've already done so much. The gifts for Lily, the dinners, everything." "I know, but this is different." He hesitated. I want to secure Lily's future. Clara stopped breathing for a second. What? Education, college, everything she'll need. I want to set up a fund for her, so when she grows up, she won't have to worry, so she can follow her dreams at whatever they may be. Ethan looked into Clara's eyes. She's special, Clara, very special, and she deserves every opportunity in the world. Clara was pale. Her hands were shaking. Ethan, that's too much, way too much. It's not, he said gently. You gave me something money can't buy. Let me give this to you. Please, but I can't accept that. It's absurd. A fund for college? You've barely known us for a few months and these have been the best months I've had in years, Ethan interrupted. Clara, you work 2 jobs to provide the basics for her. You work yourself to the bone, and even then you can barely save any money. I see how hard you work. How much you sacrifice. He paused. Let me do this, not out of pity, not out of obligation, but because you are important to me, because I want to, from the bottom of my heart. Clara's eyes filled with tears. You have no idea. Her voice broke. You have no idea how much this means to me. A tear rolled down her face. Then another. She covered her face with her hands, trying to control herself, but her shoulders were shaking. Lily dropped her pencil, scared. Mommy, why are you crying? Clara tried to smile through her tears. It's not sadness, my love. It's happiness. Happiness makes you cry. Sometimes it does. Lily looked at Ethan, confused. He smiled at her, reassuringly. Your mum is happy, I promise. Lily seemed to accept this and went back to her drawing, but she kept an eye on her mother. Clara wiped her tears with the napkin, taking deep breaths to calm down. I'm sorry, she said, her voice still trembling. I never thought someone would do something like this for us, never. You deserve it, Ethan said firmly. Charles, you both deserve it. Clara looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. Ethan smiled. No need to thank me. You've already given me so much more. But Ethan wasn't finished. In the following days, an idea began to grow in his mind, something that made sense on multiple levels, something that could help Clara in a more immediate way. He needed someone he could trust, someone loyal, honest, hard-working, and Clara was all of that and more. It was on a Thursday that he finally worked up the courage. He went back to the diner at his usual time. Clara served him with the warm smile that was now reserved for him. The usual? Actually, I need to talk to you when you have a minute. Clara blinked, surprised. Is everything okay? It is. It's something good. I promise. She nodded and went back to work. 15 minutes later, when the rush slowed down, she sat across from him. What is it? Ethan shifted his position, suddenly nervous. I have a proposal for you, and I want you to think carefully before you answer. Clara frowned. What kind of proposal? A professional one, he said quickly. I need someone loyal by my side, someone I can trust. And I thought, have you ever considered changing jobs? Clara blinked. Changing to where? To work with me as my executive assistant. The silence fell heavily on the table. Clara stared at him, processing. Are you serious? Completely serious. But I have no experience with that. I work in a diner. I don't know anything about offices, companies, or... You know how to organize, Ethan interrupted. You know how to deal with people. You know how to work under pressure. I've seen you do it every day here. And more importantly, you're honest, loyal, trustworthy. He leaned forward. That's worth more than any degree to me. But the salary would be fair, much more than what you earn here, with benefits, health insurance for you and Lily, paid vacation, fixed hours, no working 2 jobs. He paused. It's not charity, Clara. It's an opportunity. A dignified opportunity. And you deserve it. Clara was pale again. Her hands trembled on the table. Is this real? Are you really offering me this? I am, but only if you want it. No pressure. If you'd rather stay here, I understand, but... He smiled. I would love to work with you, I really would. Clara looked at her own hands. At her worn-out uniform, at the worn-out floor of the diner. Then she looked at Lily in the corner, drawing with the pencils he had given her. Can I think about it? Of course. Take all the time you need. Clara nodded and went back to work. But Ethan saw the way she moved now, slower, thoughtful, processing. 3 days later, Clara asked to speak with him after her shift. Ethan waited outside the diner. The February cold was biting, but he barely felt it. Clara came out, her coat pulled tight around her. Lily was with her, as always. I thought about your proposal, she said, without beating around the bush. And Clara took a deep breath. Why me? For real. You could hire anyone, someone with experience, one with a degree. Why choose someone who works in a diner? Ethan looked at her bright, tired but strong eyes. Because I trust you, he said, simply, because you showed me who you are, and I need someone like that by my side, someone real. Clara was quiet for a long moment, then she nodded slowly. Then I accept. Ethan's heart leaped. Really? Really? But on one condition. Which is? If I'm not good at it, if I can't do it, you have to let me go. No hard feelings. I don't want to stay in a job just because you feel sorry for me. It's not pity, Ethan said firmly, and you're going to be great, I'm sure of it. Clara smiled. Small, but real. So when do I start? Whenever you can. Next week, in 2 weeks. I need to give notice here. Give them time to find someone else. 3 weeks. Perfect. They shook hands. A professional agreement. But there was something more there. Friendship. Trust. A future. Lily tugged on her mother's sleeve. Mommy, what's happening? Clara knelt down to her daughter's level. You know how I work a lot. 2 jobs, always tired. I remember. Well, now I'm only going to work in one place, and I'll have more time to spend with you. Lily's eyes lit up. Really? Really? And is it because of Ethan? Clara looked at him, then back at her daughter. It is. He's helping us. Lily let go of her mother's hand and ran to Ethan. She hugged him tightly. Thank you for taking care of us. Ethan felt his chest tighten again. He knelt and returned the hug. You take care of me too. And it was true. They had taken care of him. They had saved him when he didn't even know he needed saving. And now, finally, he could repay them. Not with money, not with charity, but with opportunity, with a future, with the chance for a better life. 3 weeks later, Clara started. The first day was difficult. She was nervous, insecure, clearly out of her comfort zone, but Ethan was patient. He taught, explained, supported, and Clara learned fast, very fast. In 2 months, she already knew the office routine better than some employees who had been there for years. She organized Ethan's schedule, screened calls, managed meetings, and she did it all with efficiency and discretion. The people in the office respected her, not because she was the boss's friend, but because she was good at what she did. Their lives changed. Clara was able to rent a better apartment. It wasn't luxury, but it had 2 bedrooms. It was in a safer, cleaner neighborhood. Lily had her own room for the first time in her life. Clara bought new clothes, not designer brands, but new, dignified, professional. And for the first time in years, she wasn't exhausted all the time. She worked normal hours, had weekends off, could spend quality time with her daughter. Ethan saw the change. He saw the way her shoulders weren't so tense anymore, how her smile was more frequent, how there was a light in her eyes that wasn't there before. And he felt proud. Not the pride of someone who gave a handout, but the pride of someone who gave an opportunity and saw someone shine. On a Friday afternoon, weeks after Clara had started, she knocked on his office door. "Can I talk to you?" "Always." She came in and closed the door behind her. She stood there for a moment as if searching for the right words. "I just wanted to say thank you." Again. "For everything. You don't have to thank me. You work hard. You deserve every penny." "It's not just the money," Clara said, her voice soft. "It's the dignity. It's being able to look at my daughter and know I can give her a better life. It's being able to sleep without worrying if I'll be able to pay the bills. It's—" She paused, her eyes shining. "It's having hope again." Ethan got up and walked around the desk. He stood in front of her. "You gave me hope first," he said. "This is just returning the favor." Clara smiled. Then, in an unexpected move, she hugged him. It was quick, respectful, but it meant everything. "Thank you for believing in me. Thank you for believing in me first." When she left, Ethan went back to his chair and looked out the window. The city stretched out below, millions of people, millions of stories, and he had found the right two people, the two people who had changed everything, and now finally he was no longer alone. He had a family, not by blood, not traditional, but real, true, and his. 6 months later. It was Saturday morning when Ethan parked in front of Clara and Lily's building. The sun shone brightly, the sky was clear, and he was carrying a bag with coffee and fresh pastries. He went up the stairs and knocked on the door. "Ethan!" Lily opened it, her bright eyes shining with joy. She threw herself into his arms without hesitation. "Hi, little artist. Ready for the park?" "Always." Clara appeared from the kitchen, drying her hands on a towel. Her blonde hair was down, her face rested. She smiled when she saw him. "You and these bags, always bringing things." "Breakfast for the family," he said, and the word came out naturally. Family. Because that's what they were now. They sat at the small table. Lily chattered about school, about her new friends, about a drawing her teacher had praised and put up on the classroom wall. "She said I have a lot of talent. She said I should keep drawing forever." "And you will," Ethan said, taking a piece of pastry. "Why? Because you're amazing at what you do." Lily smiled, proud, and went back to eating her toast with jam. Clara watched the scene, her heart warm. 6 months. That's all it took for her life to change completely. She was no longer exhausted from working 2 jobs. She no longer woke up in the middle of the night, worrying about bills. She had a dignified job with fixed hours and a fair salary. She could spend quality time with her daughter, and she had gained a friend, a true friend. They spent the morning at the park. Lily ran free, chasing birds, stopping to examine every flower, every interesting leaf she found along the way. Clara and Ethan walked side by side, talking. "For you seem different," Clara said, looking at him. "Lighter, like you've left a huge weight behind." "I have," Ethan admitted. "I was carrying so much anger, so much distrust. I thought the whole world was bad. And now I know I was wrong. There are good people, honest people, people who truly care." He looked at her. "You showed me that." Clara smiled, a little embarrassed. "We were just ourselves." "Exactly. And that changed everything." Lily ran up to them, her cheeks flushed from playing so much. She was holding a handful of wildflowers she had picked. "Look, these are for you." She carefully divided the flowers between the 2 of them. "Yellow ones for Clara, white and purple for Ethan." "Thank you, Lily," Ethan said, holding the flowers as if they were the most valuable gift in the world. "You're welcome. You're my best friends," she announced seriously. Then she ran off again. Clara looked at the flowers in her own hand. "Do you know what I admire most about you?" she said quietly. "That's how you allowed yourself to change. I remember when I first met you, so closed off, so suspicious. And look at you now, playing in the park, accepting flowers from a child, genuinely smiling." "You did this," Ethan said. "You reminded me of who I could be, of who I wanted to be. And you gave us hope," Clara replied. You gave us opportunity. You gave us a better future. She paused, emotional. You've become family, Ethan, not by blood, but by heart. You are my family too, he said sincerely, the best family I've ever had. As evening fell, they returned to the apartment. They ordered pizza, put on a movie Lily chose. She snuggled between them on the sofa, holding the worn-out doll Ethan had given her months ago. In the middle of the movie, she fell asleep, her head resting on Ethan's shoulder. He looked down, at her messy blonde hair, at her peaceful face. He felt something tighten in his chest. It wasn't sadness, it was fullness, Clara noticed and smiled softly. Then she got up and carefully carried Lily to bed. When she came back, she sat next to him on the sofa. She loves you, you know, she really does. I love her too, and you. Family love, Clara said, the best kind there is. They sat in silence for a moment. The movie was still playing quietly, but neither of them was paying attention. You know you've completely changed our lives, right? Clara said, turning to look at him. 6 months ago, I was at my limit, tired, hopeless, thinking I would spend my whole life just struggling to survive, and then you showed up. You showed up first, Ethan corrected. You saved me before I could save you. I think we saved each other. I think so too. Clara hesitated, then touched his hand. Thank you for everything, for believing in me, for trusting me, for becoming part of our family. Thank you for letting me in, Ethan replied, his voice hoarse with emotion. Say for showing me that it's still worth believing in people. They hugged. A long, tight hug full of gratitude and affection. When Ethan finally stood up to leave, Clara walked him to the door. Same time next week? I wouldn't change it for anything. Me neither. Ethan went down the stairs and got into his car. He sat there for a moment, looking up at the lit apartment. 6 months. That's all it took for his entire life to change. He was no longer the bitter man who walked alone through the cold Christmas streets. He was no longer the one who tested people, always expecting the worst. He had learned to smile again, to trust, to believe that there was still good in the world. All because of a returned wallet, because of a little girl who defended her mother's honor with a firm voice, because of a drawing made with worn-out pencils and a pure heart, small gestures, but they changed everything. A 5-year-old child, with her innocence and purity, had seen the good in him when he himself had forgotten it existed. And a 27-year-old mother, with her unwavering honesty and quiet strength, had trusted him when he didn't deserve trust. Together, they had transformed a hardened heart into something better, into someone who believed again, who trusted, who loved, into a better friend, a better person. Ethan started the car and drove home. The mansion didn't seem so empty anymore, because he knew he wasn't alone. He had Clara, he had Lily, he had a hand-picked family, and that was all he needed. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't traditional, but it was real, true, his. He had learned the most important lesson. The best things in life aren't things, they are people, connections, genuine love. And now he had all of that. For the first time in his life, Ethan Walker was complete, not because he had money, not because he had success, but because he had love, true friendship, purpose, because he had 2 people who cared about him for who he was, not for what he had. And that was worth more than any fortune, thanks to a wallet returned on a cold night, thanks to the purity of a child and the honesty of a mother, who transformed a hardened heart into a better friend. Sometimes, all we need is someone to believe in us when we forget how to believe in ourselves. Goodness exists, honesty exists, and when we find people like that, we should hold them close to our hearts. Because in the end, what saves us is not what we own, but who we choose to have by our side.